We're dealing with the question, why does one not say Hallel on Purim? Although it's a rabbinical holiday, one should say Hallel. Give thanks to God for the miracle that He brought forth. As we find Hanukkah, when we defeated the Greeks, and we celebrate the miracle, and we commemorate the 8 days of Hanukkah by kindling the lights. We say Hallel. We defeated the Greek armies. We drove them out of Israel. We rededicated the temple. So why don't we say Hallel to give praise to God and thanks for our victory, for our salvation, where we could have been annihilated by the Amalekites. So the Talmud says that the reading of the Hallel itself, the reading of the Megillah itself, is the equivalent of Hallel. So we just began discussing this. The Maral explains, based on the Talmud, that in truth Esther's name was not Esther, but her name was Hadassah, Myrtle. And the reason why she's referred to as Esther, because the Torah tells us that there's going to be a time, as a result of the Jews' misbehavior, God will go into concealment. In Hebrew, the word concealment is hester. God says, Anochi astir astir ponai, I will conceal my countenance from you. Meaning, I will be cloaked in nature. However, every detail and aspect of your existence will be orchestrated through divine providence. And if you're able to perceive it and discern accurately the facts and make a proper evaluation, you will clearly see God's imprint in existence. For instance, the Maral points out, Vashti, as the Talmud describes, was a granddaughter of the Babylonian emperor who destroyed the first temple. He was a man where the Talmud tells us that when he came to Gehenna, that spiritual hell, the people were terrified. The souls that were in Gehenna were terrified. They said, we finally died, we escaped this monster, and now he's coming after us at Gehenna. This is how cruel and monstrous he was. And it's not to be fathomed, his level of evil. This was his granddaughter. She was a rabid anti-Semite. She abused her maidservants, who were Jewish women. The Talmud tells us that she would force them to serve her guests unclothed, to disgrace them and abuse them. And this is why the Talmud tells us when Achashverosh was drunk at his party, he had summoned her to display her beauty. According to one opinion, Talmud, Vashti was one of the most beautiful women who ever lived. To display her beauty unclothed in the presence of all his ministers from all over the world. And God caused at that moment that she should have a leprous outbreak. And she was ashamed to come. But that was the measure for measure. As you abused my children, my daughters, by displaying them in an unclothed state, you will meet your end as a result of this kind of behavior. And this is Ahasuerus in his drunken state had her killed. But who replaced her? Esther. Esther, who was unknown that she was a Jewish. She was the wife of Mordechai. The Talmud discusses the issue. Factually, It was considered adultery. When she had said that I am lost, meaning because she became an adulteress, ultimately, she was not permitted to return to her husband Mordechai. But this was permitted in the context to save the Jewish people. And she kept her identity secret. But it's unheard of. The most extreme, vicious anti-Semite should be replaced by a woman not only being Jewish, but devoutly righteous. The wife of the person, the leading Torah sage of the generation, who orchestrated every detail of the Jews' behavior to ultimately cause that they should merit salvation and redemption and to be saved from the evil decree of Haman.